Okay, so we're going through the Hardie presentation. We're with Chris McKay. He's about to start some Hardie appointments here. So we're just going to go through this real quick. There's going to be a lot of overlaps from Windows, from the window presentation in particular. Those slides are going to be the same. They're going to be presented the same way here as they would be in the window presentation. So we won't spend any time on those, but we are going to go through this, especially the other slides, and talk about what we need to be communicating on each slide. So same thing, we start off with our 6 key client questions. Same thing about got to get 3 quotes. Here we talk about the business bureau and small business admin. And really what we're trying to convey here is that the home improvement industry has a black eye. According to a lot of people still identify with the BBB, even though it's super old school. What we're trying to say here is that, according to the Better Business Bureau, there's nobody that has more complaints and has provided more bad experiences than anybody, than anything, aside from the home improvement industry. There have been over 10.7 million complaints lodged from this industry, from the home improvement remodeling industry alone, since the inception of Better Business Bureau. One of the most common issues that are consistently a source of the problem is that here in this fact right here, 80% of consumers taking the lowest bid had major problems even getting the job completed, let alone getting it completed to their satisfaction. So that inherently is the number one problem that led to a significant amount of those 10.7 million complaints is, unfortunately, homeowners got some quotes. They took the lowest bid. They had high expectations of taking the lowest bid. And unfortunately, they got exactly what the lowest bid provides, which is a very poor level of quality and service. Small Business Administration takes it a step further, and they tell us that 96% of contractors fail within the first 2 years. And for 2 reasons generally. One is they charge too much and can't provide the equivalent value to the people they serve. Or 2, they charge too little and everybody's got to get a piece of it. The backlog becomes, insurmountable. They can't keep up with the workload. And all of a sudden you get people furious because, their project was supposed to be completed 6 months ago and it hasn't even started yet. So those are really the 2 inherent problems and why this alarming statistic is true and why 96% of all contractors fail within the first 2 years. Here, this is company story, nothing different here. 4 C's, nothing different here. Nothing different here in our resume page. Here, it's a little bit different. So if you look at James Hardie's website, you'll see 3, 4, 5, 6 contractors listed on there, including us. If you click on that button that says contractors in San Antonio, that's a live hyperlink. That will take you to the landing page on James Hardie's website for San Antonio. And what you'll see there, I'm not going to do it because it's going to mess up my whole screen share thing here. But what you'll see is that we're at 98%. There's 2 more companies that are at 93 or 92 and then 95% recommendation rate. But what's significant, so you point that out to the client, but what you really want to point out is the number of surveys. And this slide is, a couple months old. It shows 3,532. We just looked at that page. It's like 3,997, I believe. The next closest company, which is Amazing Siding, has like 300 surveys. The third company listed has 21 surveys. So when it comes to, and this is what you want to point out to people, when it comes to trusted, evaluated experience in working with James Hardie's products, there's nobody that has the experience and the wherewithal to use this product like we do. The next thing you want to point out when you're on that page is that the badges. So the Elite Preferred Contractor Alliance, we're the only one that has 4 of 6 badges. The other 2 companies both have 2 of 6, which means they're not compliant in 4 out of 6 criteria that really make a company Elite Preferred. We are compliant in 4 of 6. And quite honestly, I always tell people this, one of those badges is Color Plus. And we're going to talk about that here in just a minute or 2. but we have some evaluated experience with Color Plus, and we chose not to install that product any longer. And again, like I said, we'll touch on the details of that. But that's what we're talking about here is we've served more people. We've been doing Hardie plank 12 to 15 years longer than anybody else in San Antonio. And these surveys and the results here listed on James Hardie's website are proof of that. Then we go to the next slide. You know this slide from your window presentation. Same slide here. We talk about each person. We talk about their tenure with the company. How long have they been here? And we talk about their role with the company. Before we do that, it's the same way we should be setting up the window personnel slide, is that one of the biggest differences between Southwest Exteriors and any other contractor out there is we've made the bold decision to invest in the infrastructure of our company to put extremely talented people in extremely important positions to make sure that every single one of our clients has a 5-star experience like they're entitled to. You can mention, if you want to, the people on this page, represent over, $200,000 in annual salaries that the company invests in because we believe it's worth it enough to provide every single one of our clients with a 5-star experience. Absorbing that overhead and having 4 salaried people in positions to do nothing more than take exceptional care of our clients is a worthwhile sacrifice for us as a company. And then, we talk about each person's role. We talk about project management, so you don't have to manage your own project. Why in the world would you ever manage, contract with a company that expects you to manage your own product, or your own project? Of course you would expect it to be less because they don't have a salaried person, a salaried project manager that's going to help see your project across the finish line. You would expect just from that alone for some competing quote to be less than maybe what we're going to look at, just from the standpoint of, there's one less guy we have to pay for, meaning the other company. So that's how we do this slide. This is a hyperlink. I always stop here. So let me ask you, Chris, what's your familiarity? You can be honest with me. It'll help us both out. But what's your level of familiarity with James Hardie on a 1 to 10? Get their answer. If it's 4 or less or 5 or less, I play this video. It's a great, really warm, touchy, feely, very aesthetic. It's not like dudes swinging hammers and hard hats wearing steel toe boots. It's a very aesthetically done video that talks about, James Hardie's commitment to providing exceptional products to the marketplace and also being environmentally responsible in doing it. So again, very touchy-feely, very like warm, fuzzy, like, I want that. I want to be a part of that company. That's what we're trying to convey here. So you show the video, it's like 2 minutes and 30 seconds or 2:45, something like that. And then you ask them if they have any questions. How does that sound to you? Does that sound like a company that you could be proud, to partner with in terms of their siding on the exterior of your house? We get to here, Chris, this has been a huge issue. And we've seen this firsthand kind of unfold because we've been doing this so long. There's a scary, scary problem going on right now, and it's rampant. And the problem is that there's such a demand with Hardie because it's so durable, because it's the best thing to do to the exterior of your house, because the return on investment is so high. Everybody, every kind of contractor, not contractor, anybody that considers themselves a handyman or, any definition thereof, has tried to get into installing Hardie plank on people's homes. There's a couple different problems with that. The main problem is you have many people installing Hardie plank that don't know what the heck they're doing. That's a significant liability and a significant risk for a homeowner to shoulder. The second thing is because they don't know what they're doing, they're not using the right materials, they're not using the right installers that have the expertise and the knowledge to do something like this. So their pricing is completely out of whack from what responsible, ethical, trained, certified companies are charging. So it's created a lot of price discrepancy in the market. and a lot of price distrust in the market just from the mere fact of they're not doing it right. They're not using the right materials. They're not using the right installers. So absolutely, it's going to cost less. And that's the big liability. That's a huge, huge risk for a homeowner, is making sure they don't choose one of those guys and they don't select the option that is too good to be true, meaning too good of a price. So that's what all these little things, all these little intricate details right here that we're looking at on this page, they're all things in James Hardie's best practice manual that says, hey, Mr. Installer, these things have to be done if your client's warranty is going to be valid. Problem is, it's a 300 to 400 page manual. Again, if you're a fly by night, or if you're just somebody trying to capitalize on the here and now, trying to get into the Hardie marketplace, you're not going to spend 6 months, let alone 6 years, 10 years of evaluated expertise, in terms of working with the product to figure all this stuff out. You're not going to study this manual. You're going to just grab some Hardie plank and a couple dudes that know what a hammer are, and you're going to start installing the stuff. And the homeowner is going to be the one that pays the price for it. So all these little intricate things right here that we're looking at on this page are details that Hardie Plank themselves, James Hardie, the company, says they have to be done if your warranty is going to be valid. If these things aren't done, guess what? You have zero protection for every dollar that you spend on the project. So that's what this is about. We're going to talk about installation a little bit more in depth now. But this is, again, we're all this content that we're referencing here. See how the print, the pictures, the colors are all similar. These pages are all out of the James Hardie Best Practice Manual. This is a significant thing that we're seeing right now because of the craziness with lumber. A lot of companies have made the move to installing foam underneath the siding instead of lumber. Problem is it doesn't take a NASA technician here to know that when you nail into foam, foam compresses. Foam is not rigid and it's not sturdy like wood. So when you nail into foam, it is going to compress. It may not be tomorrow, next week, or next month, but eventually you are going to see evidence, just like in this middle picture, you're going to see evidence of that foam compressing where it's been nailed. And that's what we see. These wave lines on this wall, this is from somebody I actually visited with. These wave lines were caused by a contractor using foam instead of wood underneath as a substrate, and the result that the client got from it. Huge mistake. The only correction here is either do a whole bunch of nailing where you shouldn't nail, which is on the face of the boards, to try to level that out, or tear it off and start over again. Because of that, we don't play with foam. We don't mess with it. We never have. We never even considered it because we know the byproducts. Again, it may not be this month or next summer, but eventually after a year, a couple of years, 3 years, you're going to start to see these wave lines, and that's a risk that we are not willing to expose people to. So we do not use foam as a substrate in any manner. Next thing we're going to look at, so after we do take off your siding, if we need to in fact do that, and we put on the OSB substrate, we're going to put on what's called a Hardie wrap. Now the two pictures on the left are not for the sake of the wrap purposes. They're more important for technique and showing how that's installed. So we actually slap staple the Hardie wrap onto the house, onto the OSB, just like you see him doing in the top left picture. Directly below that, what he's doing is called seam taping. So it's the difference of putting on a windbreaker or putting on a windbreaker and zipping it up. Have you ever done that and asked them, what are the effects of that? What is the difference you feel with the windbreaker on loose versus the windbreaker on and zipped up? Let them comment on that. That's the same exact reason why we use seam tape on the house instead of just letting the Tyvek or the Hardie wrap float around and flop around in the wind. So we seam tape all our seams. We use a slit flashing or a joint flashing, as you see in the upper right picture, behind all of our butt joints. So you'll see the guys put those little 9-inch, typically they're 9-inch, sometimes 10 or 11 inches, but we put that slit flashing on behind the butt joints of the planks to prevent water from infiltrating at those seams. And as we'll talk about in a little bit more detail down below, we put the trim on first, as you can see has been done in that lower right-hand picture. We put the trim on first, and then we fill in the gaps with the boards. Kind of like, you know, when you were a kid and you used to color, the fancy way to color was trace the outline and then color it all in, right? At least that's what I did because I used to love coloring. But it's the same thing here with Hardie plank. We put the trim on first, and then we install the boards to fill in the gaps in between the trim. And what that produces is a benefit that we'll look at here in a little bit more detail when I get my samples out for you. And then, of course, any questions, move on. So these, again, we're going to talk a lot about small details here. And it's usually these projects are enormous. They're massive, and they're really all encompassing in terms of the exterior of your house. But when it comes to Hardie plank, the small details generally have the biggest impact on the overall quality of the finished product when it comes to Hardie plank. So we're going to spend a lot of time looking at the small details so you can have confidence that these small details have been taken care of and they haven't been left to chance or left to, circumstance if and when something were to fail. So our stance as a company has always been to do the right things necessary to make sure there is no chance of failure or there is no chance of something going wrong. So here, again, this all has to do with, kind of rake walls where there's sidewall that dies into a roof line. If they don't have this, you spend about 15 seconds on it and move on. If they do have this, if it's a really cut up house or a big house, you got gables, you got dormers, you got rakes all over the place, you need to spend like 5 minutes on this. Because this ultimately is where things go wrong, because if a contractor doesn't use flashing, I have not once heard, I wouldn't say that. Maybe 4% of the time, I hear somebody be like, oh, yeah, the other company told me something about that. Most time I get deer in the headlights, 96% of the time, and that's being conservative. 96% of the time I get the deer in the headlights like, what? What are you talking about? And that's the first time they've ever heard of it, which is, as you can figure, why we talk about it. So here we talk about exposure. This is all about exposure from roof line, deck, porch, slab, patio, minimum 1 to 2 inches clearance. It does not go right down to the ground. That's clearly voiding James Hardie best practices. Based on the wall structure, we will install a L flash, which is in the top picture, the 3.14, if you look in the upper left-hand corner of the actual photo or the sketch. That's an L flash. 3.15 is a Z flash. Really not significant. They both are flashing elements that are meant to keep water from infiltrating at that joint between the wall and the roof. And the crews will determine once they're up there which one is best and will install that flashing. A lot of companies, they're going to tell you once they're done, if you even know, to ask about it, which no normal homeowner knows to ask this question. They're going to tell you, oh, that's a roofing element. You're going to have to call your roofer to get that done. We don't believe that's right. We take it on ourselves to install that as we're doing the project. Ask if there's any questions. The next thing we do is move on to trim. And again, this is a small detail that has a huge impact in terms of the fit and finish of the actual product. There is an ultra specific way that window trim, gable vent trim, door trim needs to be installed, and it's indicated in these pictures right here. So the post pieces, the pieces that run vertically up and down, those are called post pieces. Those post pieces run the entire length of the window, as well as the bottom lentil piece, lentil meaning side to side. The bottom lentil piece, it runs the full length of that. So it's in essence the window plus 3.5 inches. The reason for this is that, see how that, as you see in the picture, it creates a vertical seam. We always want a vertical seam when we're talking about watershed. We do not want a horizontal opposing seam. So that is why that trim has to be so specifically installed, and very, 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 very rarely, maybe 1% or less of the time, do builders actually install it correctly, which is why homeowners typically have more problem with their window trim than any other piece on the house. They either cut it horizontally and have a horizontally opposing seam to watershed, or they did a miter cut it at 45 and just even created a better highway for water. So that's how we install the window trim, the gable vent trim, and the door trim. On the top piece, the lintel piece on the top of the window, it extends the width of the window plus 3.5 inches on each side to cover the width of the side post trim. So again, there we do have a vertical seam technically in between the post and the lintel piece on top. But what we're really doing is blocking that top from having two vertical seams, which would be a much worse occurrence than what we see with this full lintel piece on the top. Also, when we install all our windows siding, our gable vent and door trim, we put head flashing, which you see in the figure 6.8. We put head flashing on every single penetration in the siding. This again is another thing, that you see done maybe 1, maybe 2% of the time. Even unfortunately, with a lot of homeowners that have had failed Hardie projects, when they call us out, generally there's not head flashing. The company did not have the wherewithal, didn't want to take the time, didn't care enough to put the head flashing in, as you see in that sketch right there. We put it in all the time on every single opening in penetration in the siding. So we ask if there's any questions, and then we move on. These are all some after pictures. So you can see, obviously this has not been painted. That's how you know that the Hardie's been put on in kind of a primed state, is that you see this yellow color. But there's some very specific things going on in these pictures that you need to know about in terms of, or at least you should know about before you enter into a project of this magnitude. So starting at the top center, that's an actual picture of the head flashing. Now it doesn't stay that color. We'll see some pictures here, that I'll show you in a little bit, in just a minute, that will show that painted and it looks beautiful. But it really provides a significant purpose, and that's to keep watershed from going in behind the top trim piece on the window. Next thing you looked at just left of that picture, where you see the foundation or the slab of the house and kind of that first course or run of siding, that little flashing element you see right there is called C-channel flashing. What we're doing there is we're protecting the substrate behind the Hardie, whether it's your existing siding or it's the OSB that we put on. We're protecting that bottom run from wicking up moisture behind the Hardie plank. So that's the purpose of that C-channel flashing. It's not to prevent or protect from water running downward. It's to prevent from water bouncing upward. Next thing we'll look at, going to the top right, that's a picture to show you how, this is something we see done wrong constantly, is it's super difficult along that roof line to cut those boards to the same degree, the same exact angle, and keep the same distance between the Hardie plank and the roof line all the way down that gable run. Super difficult to do that. But here it should, it just shows the precision and the care and the level of, just the level of, craftsmanship that we have with our quality installers that are able to do something like that. Generally, you see that's a complete mess. The device that you see in that picture right below that is called a brake press machine. So our crews have brake presses that they bring out, or some of them have them installed on their trucks, where they can create all the flashing on your project that they need right on site. So they don't have to go and buy flashing, or in most cases, they don't, we don't have the pieces, we don't know how to do it, so we're just going to leave the flashing out. That's what happens most commonly. But our guys have brake press machines that they can use on site to fabricate and form any flashing element that they're possibly going to need on your project. And if you look down, this got a little wacky. These pictures got a little sized, messed up. So I'll fix it later. But generally on the bottom left picture, again, you have two things going on. And I don't know where my cursor is, so I can't really show it. But on the bottom left picture, you have the head flashing, which you can see over the window trim. Actually, it probably is a door. And then you have a little diverter flashing where the fascia dies, it terminates into the sidewall. You have a little kick out flashing on right there. And that flashing is to kick out the water from going down the roof and right into the sidings, more specifically into that door. That would be a very bad outcome, is to leave that unflashed and to have that water racing off that roof line right into the door trim. So we install these little diverter flashings or little stop flashing to prevent water flow from areas where you don't want it going into. On the picture to the right, and that's one of the ones that kind of is unsized. What that's meant to show, obviously, that's a board and batten look. It's meant to show the flashing element at the 8-foot line, which you can't see right now because the picture was all messed up. But that's meant to show that that's very slight, like Z flash, that we put between boards on a sheet project as opposed to a plank project. Planks are the vertical boards that you see to the left picture. Sheet siding is the 4x8, 4x10, 4x12s that are put up onto the house for board and batten or just a vertical look. But there is a flashing element in between those two that's crucial to make sure, again, because we have a horizontally opposed seam, there's a flashing element there that's crucial to make sure water doesn't get in between those two boards. So that's what we're talking about there. Ask if they have any questions. How does all that look? Does all that make sense? And you move on. Here's the Color Plus. So I told you we were going to talk about Color Plus. It was one of those badges that we don't have. In our opinion, for good reason. Color Plus is a genius product. It really is. I mean, the masterminds at Hardie, James Hardie Siding, it's brilliant. But in a residential kind of atmosphere, we just don't believe it to be the best solution. So we test piloted like 10 homes with this stuff right about the time that I came on with the company. What is that, 2009? And we test piloted 10 homes. Full disclosure, we gave the clients a little discount because we told them it was a trial product, and said, hey, if we're not happy, we will repaint your house at our cost. And we did that. And the eventual outcome was that all 10 of those homes actually opted to have us repaint instead of keep the Color Plus. So we kind of landed on the fact, well, heck, if that was the data that our little experiment provided, we probably don't want to go down this road as a company anymore. And we haven't to this day. So it's a genius product for some commercial properties, where it's different type of framing and, it's more complex because of height or whatever. It may make sense, but for us doing residential replacement siding, we can provide what we think is a better finish and a better warranty on our paint than we can with the Color Plus product. Some of the other issues with Color Plus is you either use a color match caulk, which is going to fade a heck of a lot quicker than cement, or you don't caulk at all. Both of those are problematic because they're going to lead to a reduced quality of finish with your project. Another reason why, again, we just have chosen to go another direction. So that's Color Plus. Most people, 5 years ago, Color Plus was all the rage. Now, and we were the only ones not doing it. So we were the oddballs, like, why aren't you guys doing this? Every other company is saying it's the best thing in the world. Well, now even the companies notorious for pushing Color Plus, they aren't doing it. They've backed off of it and they're doing, caulk and paint. So again, we've stayed the course and ended up with the better solution all along while everybody else was kind of fumbling around. So here's what we talk about. As we talked about, it's a huge risk for a homeowner to enter into a project like this, because of all the factors involved and all the things that could go wrong. These are all homeowners that had us out to fix what they thought was something gone wrong. They thought they were, they had Hardie plank installed on their homes. These are all generic products. These are not, none of these pictures are Hardie plank. And there's very, defining characteristics of these, the prints on the grain, and the boards themselves that tell us without any doubt that this is not Hardie plank. So they were sold Hardie plank by a contractor, and they were completely misrepresented to in being told that this was Hardie plank. Not to mention the quality of work and the level of craftsmanship in these pictures is atrocious, as you can pretty much tell. But if we took a step, a couple looks deeper, you'd really see some of the things, nailing, cutting, the way it's installed, all kinds of things that were done wrong in these pictures. So really, when you boil it down, you really have to ask yourself, if you take that lowest bid, what are you willing to sacrifice, and what risks are you looking to shoulder in doing that? Move on. Again, we get back to the small details. Obviously, how the product is installed is going to have a tremendous impact on its longevity and lifespan. So it'd be very easy for me to tell you, hey, look, we're going to use some better products here, and look at this, these fancy pictures, and all this, and never mention this again. Well, we're so confident, and we want you to be so confident as a potential client, that these two installation materials, because they are higher rated, better quality nails and caulk. But we want you to be so confident that these specific materials are written into our work order that I sign and that every single one of our clients sign. So we're actually using this, this quality of material for your installation. On the nails, we use double dip coil ring shank fasteners. Double dip galvanized, meaning that it's going to be more rest prohibitive. And the coil ring shank means that it's ribbed around the collar. So when these get nailed into the wall, they get good purchase and they won't vibrate out under normal conditions, because the collar is actually ribbed, right below the head. On the caulking, it's way easy for us to go to Home Depot, get some, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year rated caulk and save a bunch of money on the project. We don't believe that's the right thing to do to somebody. So we get the highest quality caulk we can find. Now there is 60, 70 year rated caulk, but there's really nothing that proves that it lasts any longer than the 50-year product. So we go with the 50-year product when we caulk the outside of your home. Again, be very easy for us to cut corners on the nails and the caulking, because there's a ton of it and it makes a significant difference in terms of installing your project. But we do not choose to do that in order to save you money. We would much rather provide you with higher quality installation materials that are going to last longer, and they're going to give us the confidence and you the confidence that this project was done correctly. Any questions? Move on. So this is actually Horacio. Horacio just celebrated his 9-year anniversary with us a couple months ago. He is one of our employee paint crews. Our paint crews caulk and paint. Our installers install. So no matter what you're having done, you can have full confidence that what is being done by experts in their particular field. We don't pretend and have the installers paint or have the painters install. We give you, exceptional expert installation at every step of the way. Excuse me, my daughter's got lunch. Hey, ladies, the DoorDash guy's here. Ladies, DoorDash is here. I don't know, he just called me and there's some dude out front. Sorry. So, so that's how we keep our, our level of experience and the quality, and the uncompromising, experience that we promise our clients. That's how we keep that at a very high level. Down below, you can see all the prep work that goes into the meticulous prep work that goes into painting. So we tarp everything off. We use paper, plastic, to make sure that we do not get overspray onto the places where you don't want it. So that's what we do with our prep work to make sure that the painting is, goes smoothly and it looks the way you'd want it to look. So, and this is, what we talked about earlier with the Color Plus. This is our solution to that, and our alternative as to why we don't want to go with the Color Plus product. So what's common in this industry is a 10-year, 15-year, maybe a 25-year paint warranty if you're lucky. We can offer something different because of the process that we use to put the paint on the wall. And this was kind of derived by us and the minds at Sherwin-Williams that sat down in a room together and said, okay, here's what we want to do. We want to provide something better to our clients. What is the process we need to follow? So that was our question that we posed to them. And then we worked on the solution together. What we came up with is we use a Loxon multi-surface primer. It's their highest grade multi-surface primer that they offer as our base coat. And we use a top coat of Duration, which is an exterior acrylic latex. Not only just the formulation of those two things, but how we put them on. We put our prime coat on at 6 mils wet as compared to 3 mils, which is kind of industry average. And we put our top coat on at 7 mils wet as compared to 4 mils, which is typically your industry average. Because we do that with those two products in that particular way, we can give you a lifetime limited warranty against peeling and blistering from Sherwin-Williams. And that makes all the difference in the world, especially the lighter you go in your color spectrum, the longer it's really going to last you because it's going to attract and absorb less heat. Plus, what most people don't consider is this paint is going on a cementous material, which is going to last a heck of a lot longer than a wood or something non-cementous. So that's the benefit of our paint process. And again, we feel much better giving our clients a lifetime limited warranty on their paint instead of a 15-year warranty like is provided on the Color Plus material. So we talk about any questions and we move on. And when it comes to color choices, I mean, let's face it, this can be one of the highest anxiety parts of the entire process next to what is all this going to cost me. We realize that, and we don't think that should be the case. So we work with a trained and certified, somebody that's gone to school for this, color consultant. And we provide 90 minutes for you and her to sit down and pick colors for the exterior of your house. And let me just tell you, in my time doing this, the feedback that I've heard from her, about her from my clients has been overwhelming. How easy she made it, how they loved her suggestions. It wasn't a lot of back and forth, that she listened to them. She took their suggestions and formulated color choices based on what they wanted instead of what she wanted. So, I mean, the service that this provides that makes this so much easier for people is invaluable. So we provide that. It's 90 minutes. Whether you use it or not, that's up to you. You don't have to. You're not obligated. But if you're stuck or if you're worried or you're anxious about what is this going to look like, she is the perfect solution for that problem. And once we put those colors, or once we got those colors figured out, we will come back and put those colors on the house. So we'll do 3 different color swatches, 2 foot by 2 foot squares. And we'll also paint some trim like you see in the picture here to help you really filter and sort through, is this the color I want on my house? We'll give you a chance to see it in the day, in the sunlight, in the dark, or in the shade. So you can really make an informed decision as to, hey, do we got the right colors? It's somewhat self-serving because it's super expensive for us to paint a house twice. So there is some selfish motivation in it, but really it's to make sure that you can get the exterior of your home exactly the way you want it. Any questions? And we are, actually, as it stands right now, we are the only siding company that provides this service to our clients. There's nobody else that does this in San Antonio. So again, keeping on the track of the small details, over to the left, we kind of took this view. This is from our showroom, but this is to help you understand what exactly happens when we tear the siding off your home. So you can see at the bottom of the picture, we have all your studs, your base plate. We have insulation in the walls. And then we have the OSB siding on the studs. Over that, we have your Hardie wrap. We have the trim already installed. And as you can see, we're filling in the wall with the Hardie plank siding. Now, the only thing different that's not entirely true here is we start from the bottom and work the way up, work our way up. So it's more for a pictorial. It's not a how-to, but this shows you what that looks like, kind of the anatomy of the wall. So with some minor caveats there, some minor disclaimers saying that it's not actually installed from the top going downward. Over to the right, you can see what our GFIs look like and our hose bibs. So we actually use these little J boxes that reseed into the wall cavity. And that way we can cut the proper sized opening, we can caulk it, and we can paint it, and it looks like it does right here instead of just a hole in the wall. So those are two little detail things that I don't quite honestly know if there's any other company that takes the time to do that. They just drill through the board and put your pipe through, and there you go. But we want it to look different. We want it to, we want you to be proud of the entire exterior, not just most of it. So we go to the extent and the detail of doing things this way. All right, going again with some great, examples of small details here. So clearly in the upper left picture, you can see the Hardie wrap's on, the window trim is on. Now we're filling in the blanks like you did when you were coloring in your coloring book when you're 5 years old. So now that is the proper process and order. You can see that the trim is installed correctly with the vertical seams at the bottom and the horizontal seams up top. And everything's ready to go for the boards to start filling in the holes. On the upper right-hand corner, you can see an example of that head flashing. Remember, I told you earlier we were going to see an example of that painted. Well, you can see that in both the upper right and lower right picture. The lower right is a garage door wrap, so we're not there yet. But in both cases, that head flashing has been put on and painted, and you can see how nice and sleek it actually looks while still protecting your interior wall cavity. Going down again right below that, that is the garage door wrap. So a lot of people have, next to fascia rot, it's probably the most common area that we see rot on somebody's home. We can actually fix the rot, of course, first, and then install Hardie plank over the garage door frame to give you a look that you see in this picture right here. And 99% of the time, we do this when we're doing a Hardie project. It's very rare that we don't. One, because of the aesthetics, and it looks so good with the wood grain texture. You don't see the seams, again, thankfully, due to the craftsmanship of our installers, you don't see the seams, and it looks amazing, and it prevents your rot down the future, down the road in the future. The last thing we're looking at on the lower left, that is an example of fascia overlay. So we are underneath, we're standing on the ground looking upwards at your roof line underneath at the eave or the soffit. You can see how that fascia, that 5/16 inch fascia, sticks out over your existing fascia, which is now becoming the sub fascia. It sticks down below that a 1/2 inch. That's very specific. That wasn't a mismeasure or a miscut or a mistake in any way. It is actually intentional. And again, it's right out of the James Hardie best practice manual that tells us there needs to be a 1/2 inch exposure below that board when you put on Hardie fascia. And that's so the watershed can go actually off and down instead of pulling back up and under onto the soffit. So any questions about that? So again, in the right hands, this Hardie product can be made to be beautiful, stunning, if you have the right people that know what they're doing and know how to work with it. Next thing we're going to look at is, this is another board. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but a lot of the problems with warranties is that they're prorated. So, and quite honestly, I'll be completely transparent with you. Up until about 5-6 years ago, when Hardie changed their warranty, they used to have a 50-year prorated warranty. We did some math on it, and we figured out by year 50, it was literally, you can see it was cents on the dollar. By year 20, you only had about half your warranty. So in the vein of integrity and them being an upstanding company like they are, Hardie said, you know what, we're getting rid of this sticky warranty language. We're going to make it 100% coverage for 30-year period. And that's what they did. So all the way up through 30 years, you have 100% coverage without reduction in value. Any other warranty that you look at generally, like especially with LP Smart side, that's another warranty or another product in the industry, in the siding market. You can see it's the same thing. Over 50 years, that warranty is prorated, and it's consistently decreasing in terms of the amount of coverage. Here, this is the Hardie warranty. Again, as we talked about, it's a 30-year full coverage warranty. The only exclusions in the Hardie warranty, and this ties into what you've heard me say numerous times since I've been here today, the only caveats to the James Hardie warranty are if a homeowner chooses to have a contractor that doesn't know what the heck they're doing install their siding. That's the only limitation to the warranty. If you have somebody put this stuff on your home that doesn't have the first clue about how to do it correctly, James Hardie is going to wash their hands, and your warranty is going to be 100% null and void. So not only will you not have the product performing to its intended specifications, you're not going to have any protection on all that money you spend. Because let's face it, even if you go with somebody cheap, you're still looking at a $20,000 to $30,000 project. So taking the cheaper quote, yeah, maybe you'll save a few dollars, but at what expense? That's the question that needs to be answered. Beyond the manufacturer's warranty, just like windows, siding, doors, concrete coatings, we offer our Best by Southwest warranty. And that's our it's our thank you for your trust and confidence in allowing us to work on this project for you. So this says, for as long as this product is on the exterior of your home, we're taking full responsibility for it. No labor costs. So, we don't send a technician out here, and as soon as he rings the doorbell, we start billing you $90 an hour, but all the pieces or the paint or the caulking's free. And the flip side of that, we don't send a guy out here for free who's probably some contracted dude from some 1-800 number and then charge you a margin or markup on the pieces we need to fix your house. We just take full responsibility for it, plain and simple. What that means is the labor's free, the craftsmanship, is obvious, because any service technician that we would send out is going to be an employee of the company. So the experience, the professionalism, the integrity is going to be synchronous with what you experienced on the front end. And we're never going to charge you for that. So whatever it is, we make it right, we fix it, we paint it, we caulk it, and you don't have to worry a thing about it. Just sit back and let us fix it up for you. But again, it's that important to us and to letting you know that you did in fact make a right decision in choosing to work with us. And we're going to thank you for it in this way. So then we'd ask the question about the warranties, feel like you'd protect your investment, 100%. And then we kind of move on. Now, this next thing I'm going to talk about here, it is significantly important. Again, just like the color consultation, we're the only siding company in San Antonio to provide our clients with this level of peace of mind and assurance. So we're going to send a certified siding inspector out from that company, and she's going to do a complete inspection on your project on every single thing that we touch to accomplish your installation. She's going to fill out this exact report. This is the exact report that she fills out. And if there's anything that's checked no on here, it's our responsibility and our commitment to you and what we promised you that we were going to do, which is give you a better quality installation than anybody else you could possibly have out to your home. We'll come out and we'll fix it at no cost to you, completely on the company's dime. We order a new inspection report. We get you and us a clean bill of health. We keep a copy. You get a copy of that, so it goes in your file at the office, and you can consider your project 100% complete. Now, the value of this is if there's ever any discrepancy on a warranty claim, this report is your golden ticket to say, hey, these guys actually did it right. There is absolutely no risk that my warranty isn't going to be upheld. And that's why this little piece of paper really does, carry the value of every penny that you're going to spend on the project. When we look at ROI on your Hardie project, basically, as you can see here, it's gone down a little bit. It used to be the #1 thing you could do, but currently as it sits, we're at #4. And you can see there the recoup cost is 66.5%. With your average job, and again, this is, for a very small project, but average job for just the siding being installed is about 20 grand. So again, in terms of making sense, it absolutely makes sense in terms of recoup costs and what you're going to, the perceived, the benefit that you're going to get from doing a project like this is significant. You will gain value in your home from doing this project, let alone prevent yourself from having to babysit the exterior of your house and every year after year after year, paint, repair, fix, paint, repair, fix. It completely eliminates that from anything that you're going to have to do. This is more of the same. It's just a chart showing that same information. This is national. So if you look at the 66.5, that's West, South, Central Texas. If you look at the 69%, that's national. But as you can see here, it's only 1,200 square feet of siding. It's rare that we have a home with only 1,200 square feet of siding. Generally, we're 20, 30, 40 squares of siding in San Antonio. Again, here, as far as James Hardie as a company, I mean, just a phenomenal, fantastic, incredible organization. They've been doing this 126 years. They've been installing Hardie plank siding in Europe and Australia well before we even knew what it was here in the States. They spend an average $20 million annually in research and development, and they have over 2,500 employees worldwide. So not their first rodeo, to say the least. Really, when it comes to the product, all we're looking at with the product itself is water, sand, cement, and cellulose wood fibers. That's all that's in Hardie plank. There's no, harsh chemicals. There's no nasty adhesives that are going to off-gas and cause problems. These 4 things are combined under intense heat and pressure, and that's how the boards are actually formed. Again, with this, the pests, any kind of birds, squirrels, raccoons, possums, they can't get into it. So they're, carpenter ants, it's completely impervious to those things. It is fire resistant instead of wood being a natural fuel, plus the, the petroleums and all that in paint. Here, the James Hardie product is a non-combustible material. It is water resistant, and it doesn't weather because it is cement. So you won't get Hardie plank looking like it's, cracking or breaking. So, and again, that's one of the reasons why paint lasts so long on the material, is because it's not changing like wood or masonite or OSB. A lot of people don't know here, and really the main thing I like to point out here is the bottom left on this little diagram here, is it will lower your insurance. Not enough to pay for the project. I don't want to mislead you or misrepresent things here. But if you call your insurance company after this project's done and tell them, hey, I just had James Hardie siding installed on my home and it used to be wood, you now have a 4 sides masonry home instead of a 3-sided siding home. So because of the lower liability, your premiums go down and you do save, you know, probably anywhere a couple $100 a year going with Hardie plank siding. Hardie siding has a 25% higher return on investment than a bathroom remodel, which are very common things that people do. And it has a 24% greater return than a major kitchen remodel, which a lot of people do. So that, just to frame it up, that can tell you how important doing something like this is. Why we don't use alternate materials. This isn't something that most people, back in the day, people would shop vinyl and they would shop aluminum. Now it's all you're really doing is pointing out why not. People aren't really shopping vinyl. So we talk about vinyl melting. These are real life pictures. This is a client of mine on the right. Siding had been on the house for some 20 years. It got brittle from the sun, and a hailstorm came through and just annihilated it. Hardie plank will not do that, and it won't melt. Hardie doesn't trap moisture like vinyl. And that's what happened here. Is this vinyl siding was around this porch, and it completely rotted out everything beneath it. Vinyl siding also is constantly expanding and contracting, especially in the sun and the heat that we have even day to day. Gets super hot during the day, cools down at night. That vinyl siding is reacting and responding accordingly. And again, this is a real life client that had a piece of siding blow right off the side of his house in a storm because nothing is nailed or screwed in. It's like a big, you know, like model that you would put together, like a car model or whatever. It's just snapped together. Nothing's nailed, nothing's screwed except the strips that you snap the siding into. Wood, you know, wood at one time, this is probably stunning. It was probably gorgeous. But the thing is now, staining something like this could, you know, it could cost $20,000 every time you have to do it. And here in South Texas, with the heat and sun we have, you're probably looking at doing it every 8 to 10 years. Who wants that kind of maintenance and upkeep? Which is why Hardie has entered the marketplace. Still get the wood look, but you don't have the expense of maintaining and upkeeping it. And then we have some beautiful before and afters here for you to look at, and just what a dramatic difference it can make on the exterior of a home. And then we just show these pictures, pretty self-explanatory. Some of these we did windows and siding. So I tell people, hey, you know, full disclosure here, you know, we remove the awning, replace the windows, you know, so this was like a full makeover. It wasn't just the siding, just so they don't think you're pulling a fast one on them. But then we just go through this. I always talk on this about, you know, hey, this was a Tudor style. People were in love with it. They didn't really want to change the style. So we just spruced it up. You know, we did the same thing in the bottom picture, but it's all Hardie plank. We did the staggered edge shingle. We did the board and batten design. We replicated it to a T. And again, that's because of the flexibility of the Hardie product and the quality and the caliber of our installers. So that's what I point out here. It's not just another before and after picture. This. Again, windows and siding here. Here I point out, like, you know, hey, look, this is mostly brick, right? All we did was change these 2 boxes and paint the garage doors, and it looks like an entirely different house. I look at that and I see 1978, 1982. I look at the bottom right one and I think, whoa, that's like 2020. So just a little, you know, it just goes to show the impact doing Hardie plank and doing it right with the right colors and the right designs can significantly alter the exterior of the house. Talk about this again, same thing with the maintenance of the wood, upkeep, rot. And that's it.
Awesome.
So let's get back here. Okay, so any questions on any of that before I stop recording?
No, sir, none on the presentation. That was good. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll save that and get it uploaded. And I'm gonna stop recording right now.